So you now know how I feel about each of the Robocop games that I've played. And first off, there were good games and they were bad games. And I do want to point out, if you're watching this right now and you've not seen any of the Robocop gameplays that I did, go watch those first, because these are going to be spoilers, to tell you the truth. Plus, I have to rant about this one thing. You'll find out what that is when I get to it. So let's start off with best to worst. And I only played 7 Robocop games, so I'm going to list best to worst. 1 being the best, 7 being the worst. Number 1 was Robocop vs. the Terminator, Sega Genesis. Number 2 was Robocop vs. the Terminator, Super Nintendo. 3, Robocop 3, Sega Genesis. 4, Robocop for the NES. 5, Robocop 3 for the NES. 6, Robocop 3 for the Super Nintendo. And the worst one, and it's definitely in the Video Game Chronicles Hall of Shame, because I'm putting it in there, Robocop 2 for the NES. That was just unbearable. Now, let's get into my final thoughts, shall we? First off, Robocop vs. the Terminator on both Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo, they were impressive. And they weren't based on a movie. They were based off of characters from movie franchises. Yes. But they weren't based off of a movie, which I was really impressed on. The Sega Genesis one impressed me the most. I absolutely adored that game. And if I happen to find a copy of it, I bet you I will play it to death, because that is an awesome game. And I may actually buy a copy of it soon, because that was an awesome game. Another awesome game was the Super Nintendo version of Robocop vs. the Terminator. That was awesome too, but I don't feel that it was as awesome as the Sega Genesis version. Yeah, it could have been better. There were some advantages to the Super Nintendo version that the Sega Genesis didn't have, but the Sega Genesis version beats the Super Nintendo version because I feel that it's much more fun. So, that tells you. And I feel that the best Robocop game on the Sega Genesis is Robocop vs. the Terminator. And guess what? The Super Nintendo version of Robocop vs. the Terminator is the best Robocop game on the Super Nintendo. That's because the Robocop game that came before sucked balls. It absolutely sucked. I absolutely hated it. And it's because and there was quite a few flaws. Besides, it's inferior to the Sega Genesis version of Robocop 3, which was actually done by Flying Edge. The Super Nintendo version was done by Ocean, and Ocean is notorious for making bad licensed movie-based games. They're notorious. And even Film and Stuff even reviewed a lot of Ocean games. You can easily tell that Ocean doesn't know how to make a movie-based game. There have been many movie-based games that were awesome, like the Sega Genesis version of Robocop 3. I found Robocop 3 to still be awesome, but not as good as Robocop vs. the Terminator, and especially it's also not as good as Robocop vs. the Terminator on the Super Nintendo. That's why I put Robocop 3 for the Sega Genesis as the third best, while I put Robocop 3 for the Super Nintendo to be the second to worst game I played. All because of the extreme difficulty and no checkpoints. There was no checkpoints in that game. And the worst of it, and by the way, it has the same flaws as the Sega Genesis version. It really does. In fact, you don't get unlimited ammo, and once you lose all your limited ammo, you're stuck with the punch. That's one of the downsides. The other downside with the Robocop 3 for both versions was the fact that you couldn't shoot down. You couldn't shoot down diagonally or directly down. Well, you wouldn't be able to shoot directly down anyway. But matter of fact that you can't shoot diagonally down, it makes the game suffer. It really does. That's the reason why Robocop 3 for the Sega Genesis is still not better than the Robocop vs. the Terminator games on both Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. But it is still a good game, no matter what. And the Super Nintendo version is far more inferior. It's definitely the worst Robocop 3 game that I played. And guess what? Robocop 3 on the NES beats it! Oh, can you believe that? Can you believe that an 8-bit game beats out a 16-bit game? Can you believe that? Yeah, Robocop 3 on the NES still sucks. But the thing about it, it was still playable. The Super Nintendo version, the problem with it is it was just too hard. Sometimes when you make it too hard like that, it makes it a bad game. And there are games that are hard, but they're still playable. And by the way, folks, even though Robocop 3 on the Super Nintendo was bad, Robocop 2 for the NES was just worse. I hate it. I really hate it. I've played it before. The first time I ever played that was back when I was a kid, and I couldn't figure it out. And then playing it again a couple times when I'm an adult through emulation, I found out that it's horrible. It really is. Robocop slips around like Kid Cool. Yeah, Robocop is stiff and slippery, just like Kid Cool in the game Kid Cool for the NES. Can you believe that? It has the same crappy controls as Kid Cool. And there was a lot of problems with the game. There was problems with it. The fact that you had to collect a certain amount of nukes and target villains, even though some of them don't look like target villains in the game. They look like more like people that need to be rescued. That's what they look like. Some of them look like villains, yes, but not all of them. Jeez. And having to collect 60% or more for both, it just takes the fun out of the game. And having to be required to get nukes and target villains, it just takes the fun out of the game. And the fact is that there are secret nuke stations that you need to find. And guess what? You have to find them. Otherwise, you're not going to get more than 60%. You're not going to get more than 60%. You're going to get less than 60% because of it. They didn't do this in like Super Mario Brothers. You weren't forced to get coins. Yeah, there was this one drain pipe that you could go down and get coins, but you weren't required to get coins. But Robocop 2 changes all of that. They make you have to find these nuke stations to get enough nukes. And the matter of the fact is, you can't even do a 100% walkthrough for that game. You can't do 100%. Because guess what? You can't go back. You can't go back. If you're like I said in that gameplay, if you want to get 100% on nukes on certain levels, you're not going to be able to get that because the game doesn't let you. Because Ocean, which sometimes badly programs games, did that. And what's worse is that enemies can pass through scenery, and they even put nuke pieces where you can't even get them. So there you go. That's why Robocop 2 is the worst Robocop game that I've ever played. And that's the reason why it's in the Video Game Chronicles Hall of Shame. And guess what? I feel that it's even worse than Shaq Fu. It's even worse. However, that's not my rant. My rant is with the instruction manual to Robocop 3 on the NES. Because if you go to Digital Press, you can go to Digital Press and check out NES manuals. And they even have one for Robocop 3. And that's the reason why I'm doing this rant. Robocop 3, the NES manual has to be the less informative instructional manual I've ever seen. And I meant less informative. It is. First up, I was checking to see how many continues you get. It doesn't say anything about continues in the book. They don't even tell you that in the instruction manual, which is ridiculous. And the manual is pretty much telling you hints and strategies. It's telling you about the levels. But the worst thing about this manual is telling you the controls. Because if you play this game, if you play it, B is to shoot and A is to jump. However, in the manual, they screwed that the fuck up. They put A to shoot and B to jump. What the fuck are they thinking? Whoever made that manual, I swear, if I ever see you, I'm going to knock you the fuck out. Because you gotta be ashamed of yourself by making a crappy manual like that. And that's by far one of the worst instruction manuals I've ever seen. And guess what? Ocean made that instruction manual. I can't believe they made it that shitty. I can't believe it. And if you want to check it out for yourself, go right ahead. It just sucks that it has to be less informative. It really sucks. And if I ever see it on eBay, I'm probably going to buy it, and then I'm probably going to cut it up into little tiny pieces and just throw it into the furnace in my basement. Because that's where it belongs. And to that person that made that manual, I swear to God, I hope I don't see you on the street, like I said. Because what you did is inexcusable. You really did. And that is crap. And guess what? Guess what? Even though I dislike Robocop 2 on the NES, and I put it in the Video Game Chronicles Hall of Shame, the manual is actually better than Robocop 3. It's more detailed. Why couldn't the Robocop 3 manual? Why couldn't the Robocop 3 manual be that detailed? Why? I don't know. I guess Ocean, the ones that made the instructional manual, it was completely nuts. And I'm sorry, I'm speechless because The Robocop 3 manual is just a piece of shit. That's all I gotta say. It's a piece of shit. And if you ever see it on eBay, I hope to God whoever puts that manual on eBay is also ashamed, because that manual is a piece of shit, and I swear to God, I might as well buy it and then destroy it, because it's the worst, well, I should say one of the worst instructional manuals I have ever seen. So that's pretty much my rant about the Robocop 3 NES Manual. And that's pretty much all I have to say about the Robocop games. So I hope you enjoyed the gameplays, and we're going back to normal with the gameplays. And by the way, if you have any requests for any kind of game or any Robocop game, let me know. Thank you very much for watching. Peace out.